Don't you just love Scrappy quilt blocks? I love them, love them, love them. I was inspired to make this tutorial after I found this quilt at an auction and purchased it. And if you want to know more about this quilt, check out my lessons from an old quilt where I examine this one and talk about how it's made, different things we can learn from it. But on to our Scrappy block that inspired this. As you can see, I've been very busy with many different styles of this block. I have Christmas and the fall and Valentine's Day and Halloween and all kinds of different fabrics that I made this block with. I think this pile proves it's a very versatile block that you can do all kinds of things with it. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you 3 different ways to make this block using your scraps. The first way is using leftover charm pack pieces. Now, if you don't have charm pack pieces, which are 5-inch squares, you can also cut them from your own fabric stash. The second way is to use general regular scraps that you have. And finally, the last way I'm going to show you is using leftover jelly roll strips. So let's get started learning how to make this Scrappy quilt block. Okay, so for the first way to make this block, you're going to need 6 different 5-inch squares, and these are left over from a charm pack. And then you're also going to need 1 piece of contrasting fabric for the middle. So if we look at a block like this Valentine's Day block, you can see that I put a dark in the middle, move these out of the way, and I use light fabrics around it. But in this Halloween block, I used a light center and used darks or mediums around the outside. So you want to make sure that there's some sort of contrast, which is what I picked out here. So if you have a white 5-inch square, this will work. We're just going to cut this one down to 4.5 inches. The rest we're leaving at 5 inches. So let's do that. Okay, my rotating mat here. Now, if you don't have a rotating mat, I just cut up an old mat and then I can turn it if I want to. So you can always use that too. I'm going to take my 5-inch square and a 5-inch square ruler. I'm just going to line it up so I'm at 4.5 inches. I'm just going to cut it down. Now at the very end of this video, I will show you how to square these up. So if you mess up your 1/4 inch seam allowance, that's okay. Don't worry. It's not a big deal. Next, we're going to take these, and you can see I picked very different fabrics, so I had a nice variety. And you're just going to put right sides together with all of these here, so 2 at a time. So I'm going to put these 2, actually they're the same print, so I'm going to pick a different one. Let's go with this one and this one. I don't really want 2 blues together, so I'm going to do this and this. Actually, we're going to flip this around. See, you got to kind of play with it a little. I'm going to do the orange and the floral, the green and the navy, and this blue and that pinkish reddish. So now I have 3 sets, right sides together. Next, I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew down one side here and one side here. So I'm sewing right down both sides of this, and I'm going to do that on all 3 sets. Okay, here they all are, and I just chain pieced them through one right after another, flipped it over, and chain pieced the other side. So you can see I sewed up each side using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to clip these apart, use my blade saver. Okay, so now I have 3 sets. So next I'm going to just set those seams by pressing right on them. Just like that. And this is where the fun comes in. So I'm going to lay this on my mat, take my I have a 5-inch ruler. You can use any ruler. You're just going to measure in 2.5 inches. I really like this one because it's marked on it for the 2.5. Now line it up. Cut it like that. So I have the seam here and here. Then I'm just going to turn my mat, line up my 2.5 again, and cut. And now I have 4 2 patches. And I'm going to do that with all 3 blocks. Okay, so now I have 12 2 patches that are all perfectly cut, or just about perfectly cut, I would say. All right, next we're going to take these and press them. And at this point, it doesn't matter which way you press. You can press to either side. All the fabrics are pretty dark, so that's not going to matter. And if you choose to press open, that's fine too. You can do that. Okay, now that we have them all pressed, we're going to build our block. Now I'm only going to show you one. You'll have enough of these pieces to make two, but right now I'm just going to show you one so we can move on to the next technique too. So you're going to figure out where you want your pieces. And just play around with it. I really like that layout. What do you think? We'll put these aside. These will be for the other block. So your next step is to line this up on this side. We're going to sew down this edge using a 1/4 inch. And then we're going to do the same with this. Now I pin. Personally, I think it helps. You don't have to, but I don't know. I think it works better if you pin these. So I'm just going to go in and pin, line it up on this side. It's a little short. My seam allowance might not have been perfect, but like I said, I'm going to show you how to square it up, even if that happens. And I'm just going to put this one on while I'm doing it. Next, we're going to set those seams and lay it right on top. It's so important to set your seams. It makes all the difference when you're sewing, at least quilting. And then I'm going to press to the middle. Next, let's see, this was like this, I think. Okay, next we're going to sew this unit to this unit and this unit to this unit using a 1/4 inch seam. And I am going to pin, and I'm going to give you a tip here with this. When you're sewing small pieces like this, not only do I pin here, I also clip down here just to stabilize it. They can get shifty, and I hate that. So I am going to now sew down a 1/4 inch here. And then I'm going to do the same with that one. Okay, now that I have those sewn, I'm going to set that seam. Remove my clips and press these. Now, this is an important part. You want these seams on the ends to press out. This middle one, it doesn't matter, but these you want out. So because the middle one doesn't matter, I'm just going to press it. And then I'm going to go back here and press these out. Make sure these are out. That's going to allow for the block pieces to nest. So next, we're going to just place this on top here. You can see I'm a little off there. I can trim that up if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. I'll wait to the end. And I'm going to nest those seams. So when I say nest the seams, I'm putting one that's going this direction and one that's going this direction together, and they kind of lock into place. But you know me, I'm still going to use a pin. Put that in there, go over here, a little off, pull that up, ease that in, put a pin here. And then I like to put a pin at the beginning and at the end just to make sure everything is kind of straight-ish. Not a perfectionist, but it does make life a little bit easier when we're squaring up. And I'm going to sew using a 1/4 inch right along this edge. You know what? This does not look straight to me, so we're going to take it out and do it again. There we go. That's straight. And I'm going to do the same with this one. Okay, they're both sewn on. Set our seams, and then just roll this back, and roll this back. And you have your finished block. There you go. And this should measure 8.5 inches. This one was a little wonky. When you're working with charm squares that have the pinked edge, I find it really tough to work with sometimes. So sometimes that makes things off, and sometimes, you know, I'm just not perfect, and it's not quite perfect. So for the second way to do this, and again, there's many different ways to do things, especially in quilting, This is the second way I'm going to show you. And we're going to pull from my 2.5-inch square bin. And I've had this for years. Every time I cut up scraps or get in the mood to cut up scraps, I cut a bunch of 2.5-inch squares and throw them in. And I actually already pulled out a bunch that I felt went together. There are 12 of the 2.5-inch squares and one 4.5-inch square. And again, I use contrasting fabric. So if you really want to, you can lay these out the way you want them. And remember, there's a seam allowance, so they're not going to fit perfectly until you sew them. That kind of looks good. But you can also just go to the machine and make 6 sets of 2. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make it extremely scrappy and sew 6 sets of 2. And I'm just going to take my pile, put right sides together, sew 1/4 inch, so 1/4 inch all the way down until I have 6 2 patches. So once I have all 6 sewn, I'm going to pick 2 of them, put 2 together. This is going to be the top or the bottom of the block. Do that with another. You can pin if you want. Okay, so we're going to go press and set this up and then sew the rest of it together. Next, you're going to take your center unit. You're going to put your sets of 2 on either side. You're going to pin them just like we did before. Once they are pinned, you're going to take them to the machine and you're going to sew 1/4 inch down on each side. Set the seams and press toward the middle or the center of the square. Next, you add your top and bottom piece the same way. Place it right sides together, nest those seams, pin, and sew 1/4 inch on both sides. So you're going to sew these on using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Set the seams. And there you have your finished block. How cute is that? So very scrappy, and you could have a lot of fun with that with color. So the final way that I'm going to show you how to make this is to use leftover pieces from a jelly roll. So a jelly roll is a set of fabric that is 2.5-inch strips that are cut width of fabric. So I have a whole bunch left over here, and then my center again is 4.5 inches, and I just used a white fabric. This is a little bit freeing, and you can make a whole bunch of blocks at the same time with this method. You just randomly put pieces together, or not so randomly. So right sides together, and we're going to do this one. And you stitch a 1/4 inch along the side. Now these are many different lengths. I'm just going to sew up a bunch, and then I'm going to show you what we do next. Okay, so I have them all pieced together, random sizes. I'm going to clip them apart, set the seams like we always do. Okay, once they're all set, I'm just going to press them to one side, just like we did with the squares. By the way, this is a super, super thick mat. It's not going to ruin the mat underneath. Okay, next I'm going to take 4 of these units that are kind of the same size, just so we don't waste fabric. I'm going to put them together, right sides together like this. And I'm going to do that with 2 of these units. We're going to do this. I am going to pin these, and then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch down on this side and a 1/4 inch down on this side. Okay, they are sewn. And now I'm going to set my seams and then open this up. And you'll see we will already have our 4 unit that's going to go across the top of our block. I'll show you how we're going to trim that down. Okay, before we move on with these, we're going to make sure that our end units are facing out. The seam is facing out. So I'm just going to press that outward, press the top again. Do the same with this one. Again, that middle seam doesn't matter. It's the two end ones because we want that to nest. So now we have a unit with 4, another unit with 4 pieces, and then 2 units with 2 pieces. So now we have to trim them down to 2.5 inches. So we're going to start with the 4 unit, and we want to get as many out of this as possible. I'm going to take my 3-inch ruler, I'm going to line it up, making sure it's straight on the sewn lines. I'm going to cut here, get rid of that. Then I'm going to move it over to my 2.5-inch mark. Now you might have to turn this. I can cut with both hands, so I'm not going to. And we just cut like that. And this is the top unit of our block. Okay, so we're going to get as many of these out as we can from these units because we're using up scraps. Make sure that's straight and cut. Okay, we're going to do that with this one too, and then we're also going to do it with these units that have 2. So now we're going to take our middle unit, make sure it's right side up, place some of our 2s around it, put them right sides together, and sew 1/4 inch on both sides, then put our top and bottom units on the same exact way. We already pressed these out, so we don't have to worry about that. I'm actually going to flip that one, and we're just going to put them on top. So, put this on top and sew. And there you have it. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to show you how to square up a block, and I'm pretty sure this one is not square or not very well done, to be honest with you. The other ones are, but this one maybe not. This is supposed to measure 8.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So it should measure 8.5 by 8.5, and it does not, which was my guess. To cut this down, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that your center is square. So the set of 4 inches, so 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. And I'm going to just make sure that the unit is square within that, or square-ish. I'm going to even it out because that's the part I really want to be square. The others, if it's off a little bit, no one will notice. No one will notice. It's okay. So I am going to do that, make sure it's straight. Hold it here. Cut. Cut. Okay, now I can do one of 2 things. I need to get this corner, because I know this is square. I know that this is straight. I'm going to need to get this corner down to this corner. So I can do one of 2 things. I can pick this up and turn it, or I can take my mat and turn it. So now all I have to do is line that up on the 8 inches right here and right here. And just make sure everything's straight or looks straight. And cut. Just like that. And I like to pull the pieces away before I move anything else. Okay, so now I have an 8-inch by 8-inch finished block. The important thing to remember with this is if you are going to do it this way, cut it down. You need to do it with all the blocks in your quilt because you don't want one that's 8.5 and one that's 8. You can even cut it down a little more. So this will give me a chance to show you again. Let's cut it down to 7 3/4. All right, so we're going to split the difference. We're going to make sure things are lined up and straight. So I'm just looking at the edges here. I'm just going to take a little bit off. I'm going to make sure this is straight, this is straight, this is straight, this is straight. And I'm going to hold it in the middle. Cut, pull that away. Now I want to get this corner down to this corner. And for this one, I'm just going to turn it like that. I'm going to line this up on the 7 3/4. 7 3/4. Hold it. and you can't tell. You can't tell. Nobody's going to come in with a measuring tape and measure these. This is just a really great tip. This is a very forgiving block, perfect for beginners because you can do that and it's not going to make any difference. I hope you enjoyed seeing this quilt block made 3 different ways. So scrappy, so much fun. If you found value in this content, please give me that thumbs up and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you and find out what colors you're going to use to make these great blocks. I did take my Valentine's Day one and put a little applique in the middle. Isn't this cute? So many ideas, so many things you can do with this great, great block. I hope you have a great day. I hope you take some time to sew, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.